Feast of the Uninvited. The crisp autumn air, filled with the scent of roasted turkey and warm spices, while families across the country gathered to celebrate Thanksgiving. In a quiet suburb, the Doherty family home buzzed with laughter and warmth as they prepared for a cozy evening meal. But as they set the table and went about their preparations, they remained unaware of the eyes watching them from across the street. It began 2 nights before Thanksgiving. Emma, the oldest daughter, had noticed odd things around the house. The back gate was left open, and the dog had been barking at odd hours. Her parents shrugged it off, chalking it up to neighborhood kids playing pranks. But when she found deep footprints by her bedroom window on Wednesday morning, Emma felt a chill. She brought it up to her dad, but he reassured her, mentioning nothing unusual when he inspected the yard. That evening, as the Dohertys shared laughs over setting up the long dining table and choosing the right dishes for the big meal, Emma noticed a new presence in their backyard, a figure half hidden among the trees. She squinted, thinking it must be her imagination, but she could see him, a tall figure in dark clothes, just standing there. "Mom, Dad, there's someone out there," she whispered. Her father went to check, but by then the figure was gone, leaving only the rustling of leaves behind. Though disturbed, the family brushed it off as a late-night jogger, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling that someone had been watching. By Thanksgiving Day, they had nearly forgotten the strange events of the past few nights. Friends and relatives filled the house with noise and laughter, and the delicious aroma of the Thanksgiving feast surrounded them. When the doorbell rang, Mr. Doherty chuckled. "Another guest, maybe?" he joked as he went to answer it. But there was no one there, only a note, carefully placed on the doorstep. It read, "Everyone feasts today, and I'm coming for mine." Concerned, Mr. Doherty kept the note to himself, not wanting to alarm the family. But when he turned back inside, Emma was at the window again. She pointed toward the street, where a tall, dark figure stood beneath a lamppost, his gaze fixed on their house. This time there was no mistaking it. Someone was watching them. Mr. Doherty quickly called the police, but by the time officers arrived, the man was gone. The party went on, though the family remained on edge. As they sat down to dinner, they tried to keep the mood light, making toasts and sharing stories, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling that the figure was nearby. Every few minutes, she glanced out the window, half expecting to see him again. Halfway through the meal, the lights flickered. The family paused, exchanging nervous glances. Mr. Doherty shrugged it off, joking that the turkey was so good it short-circuited the house. But then the lights went out completely, plunging the house into darkness. Laughter faded as they waited for the lights to return, but only silence filled the room. Then came a creak from the hallway, a slow, deliberate sound that sent a shiver through them all. Mr. Doherty grabbed a flashlight and stood up, determined to find the source of the noise. But as he stepped into the hallway, his flashlight beam revealed something chilling, a pair of muddy boot prints leading from the back door into the house. Emma's mother gasped, clutching her children closer as Mr. Doherty followed the prints down the hallway. Each step brought a new wave of dread as he realized the prints were fresh, leading straight toward the dining room. Whoever had been watching them was no longer outside. He was in their home. "Everyone stay together?" Mr. Doherty whispered as he motioned the family toward the living room. But just as they moved, a sound echoed from the kitchen, the scrape of a chair being dragged across the floor. With a shaky hand, Mr. Doherty held up the flashlight, illuminating a figure at the kitchen table. The intruder was sitting at their dining table, his back turned, wearing a ragged coat that looked ancient and grimy. His hands rested on the table, fingers tapping slowly in an unnatural rhythm. Without turning, he spoke, his voice a hoarse, rasping whisper. "Thanksgiving's a time for family, isn't it? For all to gather and feast." The family was paralyzed with fear. The intruder's voice was low and rough, filled with a strange, twisted amusement. "But no one thought to invite me." He laughed softly, a sound that sent chills through everyone. Emma's father took a step forward. "Get out of my house," he said, trying to sound brave despite the tremor in his voice. The figure turned slowly, revealing a pale, drawn face with hollow, sunken eyes. "Oh, but I was invited," he replied, his gaze drifting to Emma. "By your daughter. She looked out at me every night. She knew I was coming." Emma's heart pounded, a mix of fear and disbelief. She hadn't invited anyone. Yet the way the man looked at her sent shivers down her spine, as if he knew things she had never told anyone. Suddenly, the lights flickered back on, and in that moment of confusion, The man disappeared. They searched the house frantically, but he was gone, leaving only the muddy boot prints as evidence of his presence. The police were called again, but they found no trace of him. For the rest of Thanksgiving night, the Daugherty family stayed together in the living room, too terrified to be alone. But as the hours passed, something even more disturbing occurred. They found another note, slipped under the front door. It read, "You all have had your feast, but don't forget the uninvited. I'll be back when you least expect it, to finish my meal." The family moved out soon after, but they would never forget that Thanksgiving night. And every year, as Thanksgiving approached, they remembered the face of the uninvited guest, the man with hollow eyes who had once been watching, waiting, and who had vanished as suddenly as he'd arrived, leaving behind a warning that haunted them for the rest of their lives.